Hello everyone and welcome to Crossing Zebras TV episode 4. Today I am joined by two fantastic FCs from Sovereign Nullsec Space. We're going to be talking about doctrines. Guys, why don't you introduce yourself?
Wait, is it me first?
You go first, yeah, you go first.
Okay, wait, let me bring up the show notes, 1 second.
Amazingly, in the show notes...
Wait, it says Pro God first.
I haven't read that. Sorry.
Okay.
I forgot.
Progod, who are you and what do you do in EVE?
I am a fleet commander from Nully Secunda. I've also been a CSM member twice. This year and the previous year. And I think that's about it. I do diplomacy sometimes. I do big alliance stuff.
Big alliance stuff, okay.
I'm Blue Ice. I've been an FC in Brave since about September, October last year. So I've been with them for about a year and a bit now. And yeah, I'm now military director of Brave.
Hey.
Yeah. So,
how's that treating you?
well, it's only been a week.
As if the FC isn't always the military director anyway.
Yeah, I had a major part in Brave taking catch, and I've been with Brave this whole time and FC'd most of the large ops. Yeah, so that's me.
And as always, I'm Apothony. I'm your host for Crossing Zebras TV, and as I said, today we're talking about doctrines, sponsored by evebet.com. As always, awesome guys, go there to check out your EVE betting tools. So guys, Nullsec was where doctrines really started being used in EVE, and where they're really the most important thing. The thing that's talked about the most. When you talk about doctrines, you think about the most popular nullsec doctrines of the day. I've got getting tons of static from someone. Is that Progod? Do you mind just muting for a second? Okay, Progod is muted. Blue, is that you? No, it's okay. I can just hear static then. Okay, I'm going.
Yeah, I can hear the same.
Okay. Anyway.
It's really fine for me. Oh well.
Okay. Anyway, so first, for the viewers that might not be aware, what in your guys' minds is a doctrine? A lot of new players say, well, it's a specific ship with a certain fit and that's it. Some players say that it's just everyone flying the same hull. What in your guys' mind is a doctrine?
Well, there's a reason they sometimes call it a fleet concept as well. It's really, I mean, it really is on the core concept. So zealots and AHACs are a concept that get used sometimes. So someone say AHACs might be a fleet concept of zealots. Well, actually, no. The idea is to have a low sig, high sig to speed ratio, preferably 7 or 8 or higher, tank enough, to have a certain tank level and to have a certain range and a certain speed. The zealot just happens to do it really well, but a lot of people don't understand, why some ships get used. It's why you see some people use weird fleet concepts sometimes, because they just assume a certain ship's supposed to do a certain thing.
I mean, well, doctrine in my mind has always been just like a group of ships with different roles that work together in some kind of way that they synergize to achieve, whatever goal they want to do. So if the goal is to kill people and survive, then you've got DPS, logistics, be a war if you want, and so on. But I mean, yeah, doctrine's not just one ship. It's your entire fleet comp basically, and how they work together and how they synergize.
And so, for the newbies that might be watching, obviously I'm assuming with the Blue Ice thing we've got a lot of guys from BNI watching. Why is a doctrine better than just turning up in whatever you want? Why is that a superior idea? Progod.
Okay, sorry, I'm a little out of it. I mean, you're just gonna get your ass kicked otherwise. Obviously, it's just a more efficient way to play a game. It's the better way to play the game. I mean, people do this in other games. They figure out in Counter-Strike that just rushing in there is going to get you killed more often than not, so they find other methods to play the game. It was a natural evolution. Eve's not the first game to kind of have like doctrines like that or builds or whatever. You know, it's kind of like a build for another game for your character. It seems weird because a single person is piloting every ship, but you know, it's kind of similar to other games in that way.
Okay, so Blue, you're obviously very experienced flying the Eagles and the Tengus. That's been the main fleet doctrine for BNI since you kind of moved up from the pocket rockets, which in itself, the AB Shield Thorax is a similar idea, just in a different hull. Have you found difficulty in AB Shield railguns being BNI's pretty much only mainline doctrine that you've used repeatedly? More recently, obviously, you guys have tried Ishtars before that you tried Dummy Fleet for a little bit. Do you find that limiting, or do you find that good that you only have one thing and you just use that thing all the time, in that you don't have a familiarity with it?
Well, so the pocket rockets were our sort of baby first step at trying out like a real doctrine. They weren't amazing, but they did the job. Our first like proper doctrine that we actually performed well with, the one that we actually succeeded significantly better than all the other ones, was our AB mowers, which are basically the predecessor to what we have now, which is the Eagles and Tengus. And I think the whole way that we progressed from AB mowers to Eagles and then eventually Tengus really helped out like our new bros and our FCs, especially me, because I basically grew up as an FC with the AB mowers. I learned to FC with those mowers and with those Eagles, and having the style that and flying under the style that they need you to fly really helped, and not changing all the time really focused us, and I think that's propelled us forward. I mean, sometimes it is annoying that we can only shoot 2 damage types and people can fuck us over. But it's not actually as bad as you think it is. No, it's I think it's really helped us.
I mean, as a young FC, now that you've been doing it for a year and a half and you've been doing these mowers, these Tengus, do you feel kind of this compulsion as an FC on a personal level to try out different doctrines for the sake of trying it, just for the sake of expanding your experience and learning things? Or are you still quite happy with what you've got and you're only really interested in branching out as and when your alliance, your coalition really needs it?
I mean, we've tried out a lot of different kinds of doctrines, and I've FC'd almost like every doctrine, basically. Like, the armor fleets and, the shield tacks and all the other things, the Ishtars as well. So like when we need them, it's going to be interesting because like not very many of our pilots can actually fly a lot of doctrines because we have a lot of low SP pilots. So having the focus, medium railguns, Caldari cruiser to 5 and then Tengu it was good.
So now ProGod, recently Nully have been using Raven Fleet, isn't that correct?
No, that'd be NC dot.
No, that'd be NC dot. Sorry, I was getting too mixed up. What Nully have been using the RT Lokis. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, we're using a different Loki this time. Well, that kind of fits our low sig heavy taking option. They're low sig, so they're bomb resistant. They tank enough to hopefully not get volleyed. But they also do pretty good damage mitigation because they're obviously AB, low sig, pretty fast. They give us some options to kill. I mean, the arties help, but really their primary role is to be a heavy tanked and low sig. Like, they're similar to a Tengu fleet. They just have not as much tank and a little bit different way of killing people.
Focusing more on alpha than the sustained DPS.
Yeah.
So I find that for example, when I joined PL, you've got these brilliant FCs. You've got your Shadows, your Elise, your Manfred Sidiouses, and they. I'm just talking about my experience. Is that all 3 of them are like top tier FCs, right? They're all renowned as very good FCs, but each of them FC in
Wait, who's the third one? Shadow, Manny, and
Elise.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Alright, yeah.
like and I find that even though they're all really good, what surprised me at first is that how very different they run their fleets. Obviously, they're running the same PL fleet comps and they're doing the same kind of objectives, but how they control the fleet and what they're thinking about and what they're more interested in, just how they run it, is extremely, extremely different on a personal level. So I wanted to ask you guys, because you're both FCs, what kind of fleets do you like flying, and what in your mind is the most important thing? When you run a fleet, how do you feel stylistically you operate?
True, Blue, take that one.
Yeah.
So when I run my fleets, I try to be as straightforward as I can with everybody. I try not to waste any time if I can. I think a really important part is to make sure that your fleet members believe that you know what you're doing and you believe that you have control, even if you don't. So you always have to be really confident when you say things, basically. I think that's one of the most important things.
And
What do you think?
What's your favorite doctrine to fly? Like, say I gave you 300 pilots or max SP. What doctrine would you really like to try and fly? Like, do you have any like pet doctrines that you'd really like to fly?
Macarials.
Max. RT
Yeah.
Max?
RT Max, yeah. I've never actually done them before, but I mean, I have an idea of how to do it, and it seems incredibly fun.
Yeah. You've inspired by Mark Barovian then, bringing them
Yeah.
to GE Undock. Progov, what about you? How do you think you perform as an FC stylistically, and are there any doctrines that you'd really like to run?
I guess I'm definitely more aggressive than most. I don't usually like to sit back and play conservatively, so I like fleet comps that I can be aggressive with. When they made the probing changes, I changed my entire style of FCing. But before probing was the way it was, I was different. But now that you could probe like that, I like being in the FC position with probes, with a doctrine I could be super aggressive with and get on top of the enemy fleet. AHACs were really good at doing that, and I always really liked AHACs, mainly because I liked what AHACs were designed to counter. I mean, I liked using AHACs to fight Maelstrom fleets and Alpha fleets and Sniper BS fleets of the day. Just the way you had to do it was really cool. You had to get on right up close to them and make sure you stayed under them tracking-wise. So yeah, I mean, I could do that kiting thing. I just don't like to. I'd rather have something I could be aggressive with. I feel like you could force people into more mistakes when you're trying to be aggressive.
And are there any pet doctrines that you really like to fly, given infinite ISK, infinite pilots, or whatever? Even if it's small gang, you can have 10 perfectly skilled pilots if you're interested in that.
Pet doctrine, 2. I want to one day fly a doctrine that is nothing but battleships, nesters for Logi, and command ships for links, so that everything can use an MJD. Obviously, if you don't have off-grid link. So you could basically reposition on the field in 100-kilometer jumps whenever you want. And the entire time, anti-bomber, everything's taken care of.
I think...
The other one is I eventually want to use an all-marauder concept. Nothing else but Marauders.
I love the idea of Marauders, but I found that when EFTing them, like their base hit points, it just kind of like they've kind of got the T2 resist thing going on, and they've got the kind of theoretically they'd have a great tank, but like I feel like a good faction battleship is more tanky.
Yeah, well, the way it'd work is you'd have to use, if you wanted to do it without Logi, like with Bastion mode, it could work. You'd have to sit at range. You'd have to have a lot of E-War your Marauders would have to have a lot of E-War. You'd have to have some Logi Marauders on there to like catch up with reps after they come out of Bastion mode. But yeah, I mean, it could work. I would do it. If I had enough ISK and enough pilots I trusted to actually not suck, I would do it.
Yeah, like, for me, I kind of have a new pet doctrine every week, and it's always the dumbest thing in the world. Like I'm currently doing like double-plated Myrmidons, but that's one of the reasons I like still flying with Waffles, and I can just buy like 20 cruisers or battle cruisers, say here, have these, we're gonna go and fly them and just try dumb stuff, and that's like probably what caused me to do the Fuck Ishtar series of articles on CZ. But I think that like my main pet doctrine that I'd quite like to do if PL ever trusts me is to do cruise Navy Scorpions. I think I want to do that with like Kimmy's, like just the tank and the I think it would be really fun. I mean, I know that bombs are
Cruise Navy Scorpions.
yes.
They're pretty good. I remember when we thought we were going to go to Navy Scorpion Fleet.
Stay
The
away from
rattlesnakes are better.
DBRB.
Why stay away from DBRB?
Because it's gonna die in a big fire.
Oh, dude,
come on, they got
DBRB can't
utility
bomb. Those
high.
battleships are too tanky. He can only bomb shit that could die to like one bomb wave.
They've got a utility high. You can smart bomb it off, maybe.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that would work.
Yeah, maybe actually.
Yeah. So when it comes to designing a doctrine, now the both of you will obviously have to some extent different concerns. Obviously, Blue Ice, if you're designing a doctrine, you need to be able to afford doctrines for the new bro, and you can kind of always assume that you're going to have a numerical advantage unless you're fighting the CFC. And as I said, you've got to have the low SP entry there, and you can't really diverge too much from what you're currently doing. Now, Pro-God in Nully, I'm not sure. I don't really know what the kind of average SP is. Whether you got a bunch of high SP dudes or got to deal with a bunch of low SP dudes. What do both of you look for when you come to designing a new doctrine? Do you find a ship that you think is going to be really good? Do you have a situation that you need to fulfill? What brings you to designing a new doctrine, and what factors do you have to take in for your alliance when you come to do it?
I actually, I set out to design a new doctrine, I start with the problem first. You know, like, okay, what am I up against? What do I need to do to beat it? And then I go into EFT looking for the ship that can achieve that. I don't go, I mean, yeah, I'll open a ship and see what it could do, and I might get an idea for a doctrine from there. But usually, like, when we actually create a doctrine, we start with an idea or a problem that we need to solve, and then we go find the best ship for it.
What about you, Blue?
So like back to our Moa doctrine, because I really like talking about it. It sort of outlines for me like what creating a doctrine is. We had a problem which was basically while we were taking catch, there was this Cerberus fleet that would completely fuck us over, and we just had nothing that could beat it. We had an Augur Navy doctrine that had Tech 1 logistics, which was getting alphaed by 30 Cerberuses. And one of the big things that we need to keep in mind was the fact that we needed to keep it to T1 cruiser. And like I just basically had a look at EFT, went through every single cruiser, and the Moa had by far the greatest tank.
Yeah.
So, you know, fitting it up with the huge tank that it has, which is something like 80k EHP with links, and the fact that it led on from our previous train, which is Thorax, has made it the perfect ship for us.
See, I'm going to claim, completely wrongly, a bunch of credit for you guys using Moas. In the back when you guys were in Hadalon, even, and using the pocket rockets, I was saying to I guess these are the time Motra and Le Petit more. I don't know if they're still even in Brave. I was saying, guys, look, the Moa does the same thing but with a bigger tank. Guys.
Motre was one of the people who...
Yeah, I never liked when y'all used pocket rockets. It never made sense to me.
I'd like to say something about that, because Motre was the one who basically completely opposed my idea of Moas and stood in my way for it. Yeah, I managed to get past him there, so it's all good.
I'm glad you did.
Our Moas were basically my idea. I think Malanek had something to do with it, and then it was Securitas who helped out finalize it.
Yeah. Actually, I'm curious to know, this is slightly off topic, but in Brave, a lot of shit gets flinged at you for having kind of 6 tiers of FC progression. How do you find that FC's moving from doctrines as they go up that progression, and what is growing up as an FC in Brave like? Because I think that the experience you have in a lot of other alliances, you just start FCing and people give you more and more stuff. You seem to have a more structured environment. So what was it like, your personal experience growing up as an FC in Brave? Because also because you know, BNI is famously a democracy compared to other alliances that are just saying no, it's a dictatorship. It just is. You can't hear you.
Oh, you gotta unmute. You gotta unmute.
Hang on one second. You want to know like what my experience as an FC is?
how it was going from like never flown a fleet before to becoming the head FC Milder of Brave.
So, in Brave, we've always had this sort of thing where FCs are sort of left to their own devices, kind of thing. The structure is an attempt at putting some kind of like system to where people can do stuff by themselves, but then they have to still prove themselves to be entrusted with what they need to do, because we're kind of limited on money, and that was a big part of why the system is as it is. We can't just go around whelping Eagle fleets every day, because it's not practical. But growing up as an FC, it was basically I had to work everything out by myself and find out how things are done by asking a lot of other people. There was no real like person there in my alliance who who was teaching me what to do. I had to go elsewhere for help. So it wasn't easy. But and it took a while and lots of whelps, obviously.
Every FC has done 100,000 whelps on their way to doing anything. I mean, I'm still rubbish and useless in PL, and I've been doing it for ages and whelped lots of bad things. But still, Progod, you seem quite happy. What's happening on your screen? Can't hear you, buddy. We can't hear you, Progod.
Oh shit! I'm reading the stream chat.
Oh my god! What?
Also, I was gonna tell you, Blue Ice, I didn't believe you, but I did find a fit for a MOA that has 82k HP. I didn't think you could get it up to 80k HP.
Is it just
yeah,
all
like,
make a decent
damage
fit.
controls and
Why do you think we
PDUs?
took it, dude?
Damage controls and PDUs, I'm guessing?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's still. Oh, you don't need PDUs. You just need 2 Tech 2 LSCs, 2 invols, and triple core defense field extent. You just can't use 250s, which I mean, you're really tight on range there.
You use 200s.
Yeah, I've always tried to make a 250 fit because I want that extra range.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Still. So, Progod, for you, you've obviously been at this FC game longer than really a lot of people out there. How is it for you growing up as an FC in Eve? Like, what era of Eve was it when you got into FC, and what attracted you to the role?
Ooh, it was Sniper Battleship era. That was so much fun. I probably preferred it to this kind of... Even though I like being aggressive now, I preferred the Sniper Battleship era. So, like, when I started FCing, logistics weren't even really a thing. Like, they had just recently introduced the logistics ship, and people hadn't really figured out, how to do cap chains and use logistics yet in fleet fights. So it was just sniper BS banging away at each other. It made it really easy. It was tough to learn to FC some because you had to you had to not get caught, and sniping's not easy. But it made it easier to learn because you could kill ships. Even if you lost the fight, you're gonna get some kills because the enemy had no logistics. So it made the losses easier. These days, if you lose a fleet, you're very likely to kill nothing and lose your entire fleet because their logistics are just gonna rep everything you try and shoot. The wins and the losses are much bigger these days than they used to be. Used to be holding the field, used to be a bigger deal. Now, by the time you hold the field, you pretty much know whether you've won or not. I mean, you've probably been killing their entire fleet and losing nothing for 10 minutes.
I mean, that's quite contrary to what I've heard a lot of FCs saying, that they're quite annoyed that if they get their positioning right and they sort out their stuff and, they bridge in at the right time, or they trick the enemy, the other guys, they're going to lose 4 ships while they kill Dictors and just warp off, and you won't get any more kills as soon as that moment that you've won the fight comes across. I mean, do you agree with that at all? I mean, Blue, what do you think about that?
It's not. All you got to do is fucking tackle them, If you're worried about them MGDing away, then fit 50 scrams. They're not going to go anywhere. Have every ship have a scram or something.
Sorry,
people get mad. People get mad because they're kiting and the enemy won't sit there and kite, fight them as they're kiting. They'll just run. Like, well, that's too fucking bad. You got to get in close and tackle them.
Yeah. No, what we were saying, Blue, is some people I know get irritated at say you've got Tengu Fleet versus Tengu Fleet, right? So that was really, really, really common until maybe a couple months ago. In that if one side was losing, they'd lose a couple more ships whilst they killed all the dictors, and then they'd just warp off. And even though you won the fight, a ton of the fleet would get out. And a lot of FCs found that really irritating. What Progub was just saying is that fights these days, you do lose a ton of your fleet, and it's really bad. I mean, what do you think?
I think kiting is a viable tactic. And anybody who gets mad about kiting needs to stop being mad.
Well, I'm not mad about kiting. I'm saying people who kite and then get mad when they can't lock a fleet down because they're 100 kilometers off or something. What do you expect?
I mean, like,
you're 100 kilometers away. Like, if you want to lock them down, go lock them down. Get close.
I mean, it's not like you're going to get something without trying. They're 100 km away. Well, put them at 0 and maybe try. And if you can't, well, I mean, they're better than you. It's just like...
I mean, do you think that the way things are currently designed is that you're more likely to win if you try and fight at range and kite, and if you bring that closer brawling doctrine with the extra tackle, you're less likely to win the fight in the first place? I mean,
every situation is different. There is no one right answer.
I think you're more likely to win if you kite, honestly, because like, if you stay out of trouble and you kill people, you're going to be happier because you lose less stuff on average, I guess.
I mean, in my mind,
sometimes if you keep kiting, eventually they'll adjust, and then you'll have to adjust. I mean, there's no right way to fight every single time. Like, I like to get in close, but that doesn't mean I won't kite, or that doesn't mean I won't sit back and snipe even, or I won't do like hit and runs and shit.
I mean, in my mind, ideologically, I would love it if the more committal a doctrine you bring, i.e. the harder it is for your doctrine to fuck off, the stronger the doctrine should be. So the more risk you take coming on grid, the more rewards you're likely to get. Whereas if you bring a chitin doctrine that can always run away easily, so say your Ishtars or your Serbs, then they should be less effective. Whereas what we've seen, what we've seen for a long time is that it's those kiting doctrines, the might of the Ishtar, Tengus to some extent. Obviously, they're not quite as kitey as Ishtars, but they can still just AB out, kill things.
Yeah, that's why people dislike the Tengus, is because they're so good, but they are very hard to lock down. You're right. Some comps are extremely hard to lock down. I mean, technically, you could really... Like, if you had a numbers advantage, there are ways you could lock a Tengu fleet down. It would suck, but you could do it. But yeah, it's not like keeping NKDBS on, or even... I would rather, if I'm trying to tackle something, I'd rather be up against MWD hacks instead of AB ones, even though the MWD is faster, because I know all I got to do is get scrams on it and it's completely turned off.
Yeah,
it's just a lot easier to tackle. So I could see that.
Yeah, the reason I want you guys to talk about your experience into getting into seeing is it kind of leads on to our next point, is that in Modern Eve, say you've got a guy who's done some PvP, loves doing it, he's in a nullsec alliance, be it BNI, Nully, NC, PL, wherever. What kind of doctrines would you say are good for someone to get started in? What ones do you think you'll get numbers on? What do you think are simple doctrines that, say we've got a new bro in the chat watching saying, hey, this FC thing sounds really cool, what should I look into be flying? Or even stylistically, what type
Tal
of
Wars.
Why Tal Wars?
Because they're a very simple idea to fly. They've there's basically one way to fly them, and that's get at max range, shoot things. Can you alpha things? Yes. Keep alphaing things. No. Leave. It's really simple, and they're really, really good for a destroyer hull. They have a huge amount of alpha, a decent amount of HP, a very low sig, relatively good speed, and they're cap stable with an MWD on.
Yeah. Progod, what about you? What advice would you give to an FC looking to start out?
Do the homework. Get into EFT and learn, you need to know the numbers behind these doctrines. You need to know not just your own doctrine, but other doctrines. You need to know how other people's fleet concepts work. You need to know how much EHP they have, what kind of range they have, how much damage they do. So you can quickly do these calculations during a fight. You need to know when you're going in, like, okay, he's got 50 Tengus, I have scimitars with an 80k tank. Odds are they're not going to be able to tank if I get too close to them. Can I win this fight while losing my scimitars? You need to know all those numbers so you can make the decisions quickly. Some people, they know like they know how to tell people what to do. They know how to broadcast targets, but they don't get why they're doing it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the thing that really shocked me, in that I went from EVE University to Waffles to PL, and in EVE University I got quite used to the mechanics of like just broadcasting targets, calling them, anchoring the fleet around at the same time, and just doing the on-grid thing that the FC does. And then when I came to Waffles,
you can go through the motions. You're saying, yeah.
Yeah, but then when I came to Waffles, I immediately had to learn how you get the fight in the first place, and how you start the fight at an advantage. I mean, a lot of FCs I know say that the fight is won or lost as both sides land on grid. So, like, it's the very beginning phases, like who gets the range advantage, who, you know, sets up better, and all that kind of stuff. And then how to convince people to engage you in the first place if you're on a roam. Like, everybody, when I was in EVE Uni, wanted to engage EVE Uni because they knew we were terrible, and we were terrible. So they were just looking for easy kills, and sometimes you could surprise them and, you know, get some kills of your own. But when I was in Waffles, that was a far more respected PvP corp, because it was a focused PvP corp, and I wouldn't just have people running into us regardless of what they have anymore. I mean, so how do you think, as an FC, you develop those skills that aren't just kind of the target calling, broadcasting, anchoring, that just comes to just instinct and practice?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize some of the other factors in it. I think getting the fight is a skill that is very undervalued. A lot of people don't know how to get the fights. They can do the fights like when they have to do them, like over timers and Sov Wars. Like, as long as the enemy shows up, they'll do the fight, but they don't know necessarily how to coax a fight out of people, and still put yourself in a good position. That's a tough skill that a lot of people don't have. I'd say the only way to really develop it is experience. I mean, you got to have the right ideas at the same time, but a lot of the things I do, a lot of the tricks I use sometimes are tricks I picked up over the years. And if you put yourself in enough situations, if you keep FCing and get more experience, eventually you kind of get a feel for it. And you've been in so many situations, you have a quick idea of what to do in any of them.
And Blue, for you, obviously BNI, since its inception, has kind of been a place where everyone EVE has just gone for content. They'll just sit on your dock and wait for you. Have there been occasions where you found it difficult to get fights, or is it still fairly easy and you haven't had as much as a need for that kind of thing to go on?
No.
Just content all the time?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. Almost every day there's a fleet that comes by our space looking for a fight, and it's really good because, you know, I'm entertained and all of our members are entertained because they get, you know, kills, and it's good for Nubros because they can learn off of, you know, the people who come down, and it's really good for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so what I find is that if you're too intimidating, so you've got a stream of mainline doctrines that are supposed to be really good, so say you've got Ishtars and you've got, I don't know, say TFIs as your mainline doctrines. When you just want to go out and roam, you need something different. You need something that people are going to want to engage. You need something that people are going to believe they can go. For example, I do a bunch of roaming with Waffles, and Waffles have our Ishtars, and before that we had Eagles, and those were kind of our mainline fleets. However, you roam around low sec in those, nobody's going to engage you. So we have T1 fleets. What do you think are you're looking for in a doctrine that's different between mainline fighting and just trying to win a timer, and a doctrine where you're just going out and looking for some fun and just looking to pew pew? I mean, are there any differences there? Do you have to focus on any more of the sport? Do you need more tackle?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes. I mean, I guess if we're talking straight up bait, like, you can create a doctrine that's like literally people think is terrible, and then somehow it's good. But if I'm just roaming and I don't want to, you know, and I'm not entirely baiting it, like intentionally baiting an enemy, I just look for something that's pretty all around. Obviously, the ability to like kite is pretty important if you're gonna roam. Or, I mean, you either need to be able to kite or you need to be pretty confident you can tank anything you come up against. So it seems like the roaming fleets are more focused on kiting because they don't necessarily know what they're going to come up against, and you got to be able to keep your fleet alive without knowing if you can actually tank an enemy fleet, which is a difficult concept. So.
So, moving on then, over the past couple of years, I guess, at least since I've been playing, cruisers have been the most dominant fleet size for things going. We had the era of the Ishtar, you had the era of the Tengu. More recently, we've seen more battleships come into play than we've seen in quite a long time, I think. What do you think caused Cruisers Online, as some people called it? And what do you see the direction of EVE going in, to the extent that you can kind of foretell, given the direction you see CCP
Well,
going
T3. I mean, battleships are still used.
Yeah.
I mean, battleships are. I wouldn't say it's Cruisers Online.
For a while, it was almost cruisers like 80-90% of the time. Like,
well,
no
the
BCs,
Strat cruisers did it. I mean, you can get a battleship tank on a cruiser hull with this cruiser sig and cruiser speed. I mean, it's just better than everything.
Get more than a battleship tank on a cruiser hull.
Oh, Tengus.
Yeah. I mean, they've been nerfed, so, they're not as good, but they're still
pretty rockin'.
Pretty ridiculous. I mean, what, 230k EHP? That's more than an APOC Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What direction do you think Doctrines of the future are going in with the current kind of way CCP are viewing ship balancing? Do you guys have any ideas on that?
I think they're going to be more focused around, like, being able to kill things in low numbers because of the whole Vozisov thing. That's going to be quite important, in my opinion.
I think it's going to get pretty interesting. I think a lot of doctrines are going to... I think it's going to be a huge change. I think a lot of doctrines are going to open up and a lot of ships are going to be considered that haven't been considered because the EHP requirement is going to come down. I mean, the basic core... In large fleet fights, the basic core of doctrine design is, can I tank the enemy I'm fighting? And as the fleets have gotten larger and the volley... More importantly, the question is actually, can this ship stay alive for 6 seconds until reps hit? Or 4 seconds if you're using shield. So,
or 10
whether they fire fast enough to do a 2-shot volley or to get 2 shots in 6 seconds or not, you have to calculate that. But basically, like it used to be, 150k EHP Abaddons were enough to tank people. Now, 150k EHP isn't going to tank like mini fleets of 150-man fleets anymore. In most situations. So, now you got to have 200k EHP battleships. And now 240k EHP Tengus, or they were until they got nerfed. Or 270k EHP Tengus in some situation. So, I think, now that the number of people you need to tank has gone down considerably, you're going to see a lot of other things that are more important. Different problems come up that need different solutions. So a lot of ships are going to be considered. I think you might see. I mean, we're looking at Orthuses, stuff like that. But ships that are pretty good all around. It's going to be more of a kiting situation, but you still want to lock enemies down and kill them because you can't just kite back and forth. No one will make any progress. You have to get on top of the enemy to force them off the Entosis, the grid, to stop them using their Entosis. So it's going to be this weird combination where things need to be fast, but they also need to be able to be aggressive. And I kind of like the idea.
One of the things I've heard people worrying about is, say you've got a constellation and you've got all your timers coming out, that people won't really put their fleet out there. They'll just send just enough to Entosis the structure, and then the moment the other guys come in, the other guys they're facing come in, they'll just bridge from a Titan onto that point and super focus that point. I mean, do you think that's a valid tactic,
fine.
Or?
I mean, yeah, people are going to put a main fleet on a Titan and try and swing fights somewhere, but you just gotta. I mean, if you've got people in other places, you can pin them there. It's just going to be really hard to move around a big fleet like that all the time when there's no reason. You're going to have a presence at every single one of those things because there's no reason. not to whatchamacallit, not to be in Tosa seeing all 5 things at the same time. So they're going to put at least one person there, and you either have to bounce between them real quickly and then leave someone behind, or leave, what are you going to do, leave half your fleet behind? I mean, eventually you're going to start splitting your fleet up too, because you got to stop them from intosising the thing as soon as you leave. So I guess you could bridge on one with your full fleet and then leave a small group behind after you finish killing them, but, you know, you got to make sure you kill them and they'll pin you and other things like that. I could see how people would, you know, it might not happen, but I think you're going to see people split their fleets up. You kind of have to. It'd be difficult not to.
Blue. You're going to need more FCs as well.
Yeah, Blue, in Fozzy incoming with this intense Intosis mechanic, how do you see a group like BNI doing? I mean, obviously they're going to have a huge amount of numbers, which is going to be exceptionally useful. How do you see your doctrines and your style of fighting change, if at all? I mean, what do you think on a doctrine level you're going to need to change or adapt to or improve for a group such as BNI?
Well, we're going to need a lot more people who can take charge over a very focused group. I've tried to keep my fleets, you know, very focused all the time, and you know, we're going to have, you know, a lot more smaller fleets that can do something very, very well, which has not been our strong point. We've sort of lumped everybody into a big giant blob, and yeah, done it that way. But I think it's going to be very good for us.
Okay, so it's 1:45, so and we've been talking about this for a while, and I know ProGod probably needs a bag of crisps or something. So
I'm
guys,
good.
Feel free to do shout outs. We'll move on to shout outs. So ProGod, please go.
Shout out. Last night I blacked out drunk, so I'm sure there's some people I offended. I'm sorry. Whoever that may have been.
Whoever they may have been.
Yeah.
Okay, Blue?
Alright, back to you.
No, BNI is recruiting, nothing?
Alright, Brave is recruiting. We're moving to Fountain. Shout out to...
Moving again?
We're going to Fountain, yeah.
Okay. Are you staying there for more than 5 minutes this time?
Yeah, we're gonna be planning to stay there for a while.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I nearly fell off my chair laughing when I was restreaming the Alliance address when the new staging was announced and then it was changed halfway through the same address. That was so good. I don't think
yeah,
I've ever
actually happened
before.
Malinek fucked up. Yeah, I mean he's gone now, but yeah, he fucked up.
He's gone.
Yeah, he got removed. Didn't you know? Lichten is in charge.
Well, I knew that Lichten was in charge, but I thought that like only it was Anna that got actually booted completely from Hero.
Oh, I don't know.
Something.
Yeah, Lichten's in charge now. That's all that matters. But yeah, no, we're moving to Fountain. If you want some more fights, come to Fountain. We're gonna wreck you. No problem.
Okay.
So, shoutouts from me, obviously, to evebet.com for sponsoring everything we do at CZ, and just the amount they sponsor the community. They just throw ISK everywhere in order to get community events and things going on. They're great guys. Do your EVE gambling there, especially with, hopefully, an announcement of the Alliance tournament soon, which I'm really looking forward to. Please, CCP, we want to know about the Alliance tournament. And shout out to Blue Ice and ProGod for coming on the show and talking about doctrines with me in... I was told by a few of the editors at CZ that nobody would be interested and get all mechanical and boring. And I don't know whether you guys have found it interesting, but please, all feedback to at Crossing Zebras or at Call Me Apoth. I'm totally interested to hear about what topics you'd like to have on the show. If you've got an interesting thing you'd like to talk about, feel free to hit me up. We're going to keep developing the show and try and talk about the things that go on in EVE, rather than every other podcast that just wants to talk about who declared war on who in the meta. I'm interested in things that happen in EVE and the mechanics and the playing of the game. So once again, thank you guys for coming on. Tune in next week, and also shout out to Galnil for taking a fight earlier. That was really fun. See you next week, guys.